We are less than 10 days away from, in my opinion, the most important election, not just in my lifetime, but in the last 100 years. And whenever you look at Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, there is so much on the line. I mean, there is so much that is at stake. Whenever you look at the United States of America moving forward, whether if it's going to be Donald Trump in the White House or if it's going to be Kamala Harris in the White House, there is so much that is at stake for this nation. Reed Cooley, how are you doing, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you in studio today.
Thanks, Dan. I'm ready to send Kamala Harris home packing. I'm ready for this election to be over. I think this is one of the more stressful elections of my lifetime for sure.
Yeah, I'm ready to send her back to California. And then, of course, ready to send Tim Walz back to Minnesota. And hopefully both of them, their political careers will be coming to an end very, very soon.
Amen.
But Reed, whenever you look at this election, I know that many of us, of course, I'm a Republican and on the Republican Executive Committee here in my county, on the Republican Club Board, and we'll attend an Executive Committee meeting tonight. And I'm very involved in the Republican Party. But Reed, as a Christian, whenever I look at this election, I don't just look at this election as Republican versus Democrat. Now, let me just say this, and I'm going to make some very controversial statements today, in this show. And one of them is going to be right here in the next few minutes. And let me just say this first, though. I have friends that are in the Democrat Party. I have many friends that are in the Democrat Party. And so whenever you look at my friends, and some of my friends are going to watch this show that are part of the Democrat Party, and I'm just going to say to you that it is time for you to leave the Democrat Party. It is time for you to come over, to the Republican Party. Just yesterday, Reed, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Young, he's a black gentleman who ran for Secretary of State on the Democrat Party here in Mississippi. Yesterday, he switched over to the Republican Party, which I think is a great thing that he switched over. Now, I just implored Mr. Young to just leave that Democrat ideology with the Democrat Party. We are the Republican Party. We're much different than the Democrat Party, but I appreciate any time that people come over and join our party. Tulsi Gabbard just the other night joined the Republican Party.
And I saw that one coming. I think we both probably saw that one coming, perhaps even years ago.
So do you think, I do think that she's going to get something in the Trump administration. I think that she is. I don't know what, but I do think that Tulsi Gabbard will have some type of job within the Trump administration. Don't you? You think so?
I hope so. And I hope it's Secretary of Defense.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, that would be pretty amazing. But what I'm getting at is this. That to my friends that vote Democrat, it is time for you to leave the Democrat Party. And it is time for you to vacate that party because this election is not Republican versus Democrat. And here's a controversial statement that I'm going to make, probably the most controversial statement of the day. But this election in November 5th, it is good versus evil. Reed, this election is not R versus D, but it is good versus evil. And whenever you look at the things that Kamala Harris stands for, just the other day, at one of her own rallies, two young people stood up in a rally and they hollered out, "Jesus is Lord" or "Jesus is King," something along those lines. And Reed, you know what Kamala Harris said?
She said you're at the wrong rally.
You're at the wrong rally.
And she wasn't lying. That's the thing. She was actually telling the truth when she said they were at the wrong rally.
That's probably the most truthful thing that she said the whole rally.
Maybe ever.
They was at the wrong rally. The right rally for them to attend, like she said, was down the street, at the Trump rally. Because this election, ladies and gentlemen, is good versus evil. Whenever you have a Democrat nominee telling two young people, whenever they holler out, "Jesus is Lord" or "Jesus is King," that you are at the wrong rally. That, in my opinion, that solidifies my thought process of this is good versus evil.
Well, that's not controversial at all. You and I have been saying things to that effect over the last several episodes of this show. I think that's a general consensus, a general feeling people have, is that this election is, and by people I mean just mainly conservatives, they really do feel like this is a fight of good versus evil. Charles Krauthammer, if you remember him, years ago he said that liberals tend to think of conservatives as evil and conservatives think of liberals as naive. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that was accurate when Charles Krauthammer said that, well over 10 years ago. I think now both sides legitimately find the other side to be evil, but for very different reasons. So, what you're saying there about that being a controversial one, I don't think that's controversial. But it does remind me of something that Ronald Reagan said in an old speech of his. Have you ever seen his speech, A Time for Choosing?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Well, he said there is not a right or a left. There is only an up or a down, right? I think history is rhyming now just as it was rhyming back then in the 1960s. It is really a matter of an up or a down. We see Trump has a very dynamic all-star team building around him right now. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. giving his endorsement several weeks ago, followed by Tulsi Gabbard. She's been campaigning for him several weeks, and she finally, as of last week, switched over to the Republican Party. Elon Musk, who has not been a Republican voter or a supporter of conservative causes by any stretch of the imagination, is coming over to the Trump campaign now. And obviously, Elon Musk is being amazing with the financial support that he's giving the campaign, that he's giving us. We can have lawyers on the ground to these swing states, quality proofing against voter fraud in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and elsewhere. So Trump has a really dynamic all-star team forming around him. Whereas Kamala Harris, she just kind of has the usual suspects, exactly the kind of people you'd imagine. Barack Obama, Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney wasn't a surprise to me in the least bit. I think that CNN and MSNBC and the Harris campaign are going to pretend like it's a big surprise that Liz Cheney went over there and decided to endorse Kamala Harris. But that didn't surprise me at all, because as we've talked about in the past, the woke left and the war machine, they really do work together. It's just the woke war machine. Raytheon with rainbows, as I call it.
Well, what Liz Cheney needs to do is she just needs to go ahead and join the Democrat Party.
That's where she belongs.
Absolutely. She's not hurting the Republican Party at all, nor is she hurting Donald Trump. I mean, there's not even going to be half of a percent of people that are going to follow Liz Cheney over to the Democrat Party and vote for Kamala Harris because of her.
She's hurting herself even more than she already has.
Absolutely. But I will say this, that Kennedy, he brought a lot of people over to the Republican Party to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, and whenever he came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, listen, I don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard on probably every issue, but as a strong, people call me a right-wing conservative. I don't consider myself, I consider myself to be a very strong conservative, very strong Christian. But I was a fan of Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, it's hard to be against. I mean, usually she's a fighter pilot, military, congresswoman. I mean, all of these things that she's an American woman. I mean, that woman bleeds red, white, and blue. We might not agree on every issue, but I'm glad to see people like her coming over to the Republican Party. And she brought a lot of people with her, is what I'm getting at. Liz Cheney, she ain't bringing nobody to the Democrat Party. Nobody is waking up and saying, I got to see what Liz Cheney's doing today. I didn't even know. I wouldn't even have known it if I didn't see it on CNN or something like that, that Liz Cheney, went over and endorsed Kamala Harris. But nobody's following her.
It disgusted me, but it didn't frighten me in the least bit, because just as you very aptly pointed out, nobody is making their decision on basis of the fact that Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris.
Absolutely not. But there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands. Let me put it like this. The needle moved when Kennedy endorsed Trump. The needle moved. The Democrat Party knows it. When Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Trump, the needle moved. Now, the needle didn't move as much with Tulsi as it did with Kennedy. I think with Kennedy, of course, he has a much bigger name. And, of course, he was running for president, as an independent. He had much more followers, obviously, than Tulsi Gabbard, had. So Kennedy moved the needle a lot more than Tulsi Gabbard did. But whenever it comes to this election, it still goes back to good versus evil, more than Republican, versus Democrat. I want to bring out one more thing, because you brought up Reagan just a few moments ago. We were talking before the show about the Al Smith dinner, and Kamala Harris skipped it. She did not attend the Al Smith dinner. And let me just ask you, Reed, as a Catholic, what, I don't know how to frame the question, but how do you feel about a Democrat nominee, and she is the first one since, what was the gentleman's name you mentioned earlier?
Walter Mondale.
1984. She's the first one since to not attend. How do you feel about that?
Well, strategically, it was a boneheaded move. I think that it's going to haunt her. I guarantee you the Harris campaign was hearing some nasty words from some big donors later that night or the next day. What are you thinking? Are you trying to lose the election? I guarantee that those were some conversations that were being had. However, the fact that she skipped a dinner doesn't concern me nearly as much as the real threat that she poses to religious liberty, and not just for Catholics, but for Christians and just all people of all faiths in this country. But particularly, I think that she's the most anti-Christian, the most anti-Catholic presidential candidate of any party that this country has ever seen. By far. By far, she takes the cake. You and I have talked about this in previous episodes of God and Country, but for example, I think that, we'll take what she said last week about wanting to codify Roe versus Wade by abolishing the filibuster. That's utterly insane. And it's utterly insane because it's going to completely demolish the foundations of our government. That's going to completely unravel our government at the seams whenever you do that. Whenever you talk about abolishing the filibuster for Roe versus Wade, it's not just for Roe versus Wade. And to give everybody kind of a breakdown of what the filibuster is, what that allows is for basically a 60-vote threshold to be put in place for any new controversial legislation to be passed. It requires broad support for any potentially controversial bit of legislation. So Obamacare, for example, couldn't pass without having to override the filibuster. I think it was Al Franken, if I remember correctly, was that 60th vote that was needed in order to shove Obamacare through. So the filibuster is a safeguard that we have against a 51 vote majority completely overhauling the country with just huge, sweeping, controversial pieces of legislation, one way or the other, Republican or Democrat, right? It's a safeguard against tyranny from both parties. The Democrats want to completely abolish that under the guise of federalizing Roe versus Wade, making it so that abortions can be totally legal in any state, any corner of this country whatsoever, is a complete and total undermining of states' rights, and it's just completely and totally against every semblance of our values, Christian and otherwise. So this woman is a total threat to religious liberty, to liberty in all respects. I don't care quite so much that she skipped the Al Smith dinner. I think she's going to pay the price for that at the ballot box. But she's such a threat to religious liberty, Dan. That's what concerns me far more.
When you look at we're going to talk about 10 different, if we get to all of them, about why this is good versus evil. And you brought up the issue of life, sanctity of life. The Bible says in Jeremiah 1, verse number 5, I want to read this verse to you. It says, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee." That is speaking of a child, that's in the womb. John the Baptist, whenever his mom Elizabeth, John the Baptist and Jesus were cousins. They were second cousins. Elizabeth and Mary were first cousins. And so whenever Mary went to go see Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was expecting, she had John the Baptist in her womb, and then Mary told Elizabeth, she was expecting. And whenever that happened, it took place, the Bible says that John the Baptist was leaping inside the womb.
He leapt in the womb because he knew his Savior was near.
Absolutely. And so, and John the Baptist, the Bible says, was the greatest born of woman. And so my point is, people can say whatever they want to. This whole my body, my choice is probably the most ridiculous argument that I have ever heard whenever it comes to the issue of I should be able to kill a baby inside of my womb because it's my body, my choice. That baby has its own feelings. That baby has its own heartbeat, its own brain waves, its own fingerprints. That baby is its own body. And so I was doing some reading last week, and I was reading behind this doctor. This doctor said, that he's a doctor that helps deliver babies. And he said that he's never had to do an abortion. He's never done an abortion, but he says an abortion is never needed in the third trimester to save a mama's life. You could always, take the baby. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know how they do that. But I know they have C-sections and different ways that they induce labor, do all those type of things. But he said there's never an issue whenever in the third trimester to where they have to make a choice. I know a lady, she was a friend, and she was expecting a baby, a little girl, and she was diagnosed with cancer. And they told her, they said, in order to save your life, you're going to have these treatments, these cancer treatments. But if you take these cancer treatments, it's going to kill your baby. And so they said, what do you want to do? And she said, if I don't take the cancer treatments, what's going to happen to me? They said, in 9 months, your body will be ate up. There's nothing we can do. Matter of fact, your body will be so weak that you will probably die giving birth. And she said, are you sure that the cancer treatments will kill the baby? 100%. The radiation, it will kill the baby. She decided not to do the cancer treatments. She decided to have the baby. She did not want to kill her baby. And she did die giving birth to her little girl. And so whenever I see, women like that who are willing to sacrifice their life for their child, for their baby, and I see what moms do, and I'm going to say something that's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, and that's fine. But I see moms that are willing to go to the ends of the earth for their child. They're so unselfish, and they're willing to fight for their children. And then I watch and I see some of these women on social media, and it's always these women that are tattooed up everywhere. I mean, not just tattooed up, but they got all these 25 different shades of color hair, and they've got piercings all over themselves. And there they are on TV screaming out, "My body, my choice." And they're acting like a bunch of wackos. And then you got a bunch of other ladies that are, you see them running naked in the streets, of Washington, D.C., screaming and shouting, "My body, my choice." When I look at that perversion and I look at that demonic, that is demonic. When you are running around naked in the streets of Washington, D.C., screaming, "My body, my choice," with all of this perversion. I was there in D.C.
Well, public nudity was practiced by the old medieval pagans and the pagans of the ancient world. A lot of their rituals and stuff were performed naked for a reason.
Absolutely. So when I see that, it makes perfect sense that these people that are doing these demonic things want to kill their baby. It's always been a pagan practice to kill your child. Now, they would give birth, and then they would go and sacrifice their child to the sun god. They would go and sacrifice their child to the Gator, who they believed was a god. They would throw their child in the river. The Egyptians in Egypt many times would throw their baby into the Nile River. They would feed their babies to the crocodiles. Many of these pagans, would sacrifice their children. Here we call it an abortion. We call it pro-choice. No, it's pro-murder. It is sacrificing your child on the altar of whatever it is that you are having the abortion for, whether it's the altar of convenience, whether it's the altar of your career, whether it's the altar of whatever you want to claim it to be. There was this one lady, she was on the bragging now, she's had 13 abortions. 13. And read, the government paid for every single one of them. 13 of them. That is, so not only is she involved in this pagan ritual, not only is her doctors involved in this pagan ritual, but now you have the government. You have my tax dollars, paying for this woman to have an abortion, to murder babies. And so I get worked up and aggravated and frustrated whenever I think about where my tax dollars are going. It's ridiculous. But my point is, it goes back to this is good versus evil. Whenever you have one crowd that wants to murder babies and they want to codify, make it a federal mandate, every state in America, and then they want to even allow the baby to be born and then make the baby comfortable and then kill the baby, as what Tim Walz, even though he claims that he didn't have, that's exactly what his bill, was going to do, what he talked about doing. That is evil. Right. That is evil.
And with many of these people, it really is about the thrill of the abortion more than it is any pretense of trying to save the mother's life or the health of the mother or anything like that. Consider it this way, Dan. This is a different way of thinking about the issue of abortion that we've brought up many times on the show. Abortion is the devil's sacrament, and I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. Think about John chapter 6. This was the night that our Lord was betrayed. That was the night that the Last Supper took place. And what was it that he said about the Eucharist, communion? He said, "This is my body." Those are the words of our Lord, as written in John chapter 6. It's not a coincidence that the first words that come out of an abortionist's mouth as they're arguing in favor of abortion are, "My body, my choice. This is my body." They're taking the words of our Lord and they're perverting them in order to institute a sacrament that is the direct inverse of the sacrament that our Lord gave us in John chapter 6. So abortion is the devil's sacrament. Therefore, you cannot in any sense, theologically, spiritually, politically, in any sense, be in favor of abortion and to be a Christian. It cannot happen.
Reed, that was very good. Matter of fact, I'm going to use that in a message, and because I'm preaching at my church either Sunday or the following Sunday on how to vote. And of course, I'm not going to tell people who to vote for, but I'm going to lay it out so plainly that people will know exactly who to vote for. And I'm going to use that. And Deuteronomy 30:19, the Bible says, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Choose life. This election, it's not just Republican versus Democrat. It is good versus evil. That is one reason why. But let's move on to the next reason on why. Oh, let me read this quote to you that I think is good by Thomas Jefferson. The care of human life and happiness and not their destruction is the first and only legitimate object of good government. Government should be looking to protect life, not to fund killing life. And that's exactly what our government is doing right now whenever it comes to funding these abortions. And government is not a business, right? Even though the elected officials that are in government should operate and spend money like it's a business in a sense, but they're not a business to where they are making money. They are not making money. They are taking money. They take money out of our paychecks every single week. Every single quarter, if you have your own business, you have to go and pay taxes. They are taking that money.
Government creates nothing. It only takes from those who do create.
Absolutely, 100%. And so very well said. And so whenever they're funding abortions with money that they've taken from me and that they've taken from you and that they've taken from you. And so here's the next thing is when you look at good versus evil, and you've already talked about it a little bit, is our religious liberty will come under attack. Donald Trump did so much for religious liberty. President Trump, he signed an executive order in May of 2017 that promoted free speech and religious liberty. This order directed federal agencies to protect and promote religious freedom, particularly in situations where religious beliefs might be compromised, such as by certain mandates or regulations. That goes back to the Johnson Amendment, to where Johnson put some things into play to try to quiet the voice of preachers. He wanted to quiet their voices. He wanted to quiet your voice in the workplace. But Trump reversed that. Trump came out, and then Bush didn't do it. Bill Clinton didn't do it. Obama didn't do it. A lot of people didn't do it, but Donald Trump did. He was working to protect religious liberty. And after hearing, I know a lot about Kamala. I've read a lot about Kamala. And after hearing her, what she said to these two young people at this last rally, do you think she's going to be a defender of religious freedom?
Not even a little bit.
Do you think she's going to take a stand for religious liberty? I guarantee not. The next way that he protected religious liberty was his judicial appointments. Look at his judges that he appointed. Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Barrett. They have taken strong stances whenever it comes to religious liberty. Just the fact that Roe versus Wade got overturned. That was huge. If Hillary Clinton had been president, would she have appointed justices that would have overturned that? Absolutely not. Do you think Kamala is going to do that? There's a good chance that they're going to be appointing to some Supreme Court justices. There's a good chance that there's going to be one or two seats come up. And not only that, you talked a while ago about wanting to do away with the filibuster. They would love to pack the bench. They would love to add several more people to the bench.
Court packing. Court packing is going to 100%.
Absolutely they would. And so if they do that, who do you think Kamala Harris is going to appoint? She's going to appoint people that are straight up crazy. And so, but not just on the Supreme Court.
All the lower courts, on the courts.
There's going to be over 200.
The entire judicial branch.
There's over 200 and something appointments, that she'll end up making on these different benches, around the United States of America. So when I look at that, it's good versus evil.
Yep.
It's not Republican versus Democrat. Donald Trump reversed the contraceptive mandate that was under the Affordable Care Act, protecting religious liberties. Hobby Lobby came out and fought hard against that. And because they did not want to be paying for abortions or paying for this type of stuff in their health care, Donald Trump reversed some of that was in the Affordable Care Act.
But Kamala Harris is going to bring all that back if she is elected.
Absolutely. Donald Trump in 2020, he started the International Religious Freedom Alliance, to where what that is that he had this alliance around the world protecting religious liberty. There's just one particular country that is closed to the gospel. If Donald Trump is elected, I believe that Donald Trump can get this country open. I believe it. I'm praying for it, that he can get this one particular country open. But what the International Religious Freedom Alliance is, if there's a missionary, and this happens all the time, more than what people think, a missionary gets put in prison, then the United States built this Freedom Alliance for Religious Liberty, and they go in and they try to help get this missionary out of prison. Not just that, but they try to go in and work with the elected officials or the government in that particular country to broaden religious liberty. And so this Religious Freedom Alliance is huge. It's huge when you look at the national landscape of everything as far as getting the gospel. And so it's very, very important. That's just something that Donald Trump did, whenever it comes to religious liberty. Donald Trump promoted school choice initiatives, allowing more parents to send their children to private religious schools. And so that is allowing their money that they pay that goes to whatever school system that their child goes to, but it allows that money to follow them. That's something that Donald Trump promoted. He promoted pro-life policies. He reinstating the Mexico City policy. Trump reinstated and expanded the Mexico City policy, which blocks U.S. federal funding for non-governmental organizations that provide or promote abortions. And so that's something that Donald Trump did in that religious freedom world. And so, read, it goes back to good versus evil. All of these things that Donald Trump did, obviously Joe Biden did away with immediately. But all of these things can come back into play if Donald Trump is reelected. Donald Trump clarified student religious expression in 2020. They issued new guidance to clarify students' rights to pray and express their religious beliefs in public schools. That's something that Donald Trump did. Now, my children go to public school. And Quitman and David, they go to West Harrison High School. And then Dinah and London go to West Harrison Middle. And then Scarlett goes to West Harrison Elementary School. So every Friday morning, Quitman and David, they go to Fellowships of Christian Athletes. And they go there every Friday. And they'll go there in the morning, on Friday morning. And they'll meet at 7 o'clock. And they'll have breakfast. And they'll have prayer. And they'll have a devotion in their school. Their coach told me the other day, I was at the school speaking to the team, and the coach told me, he said, Dan, he said, we used to have FCA in the library. He said, this is what the coach told me. He said, but since your boys are here, we've had to move it to the gym because they have so many young people coming to the FCA.
That's amazing.
This is their first year having it. They'd never had it before. But that's something that Donald Trump did. He expanded that. The prayer. People trying to shut down prayer in schools. There was this one particular coach that was having prayer with his team, and he came under attack because of what Trump did. He allows these coaches can have prayer. These coaches can have devotions. These coaches can do things with their team that before they would come under attack for. But it goes back to Donald Trump. All of the things that Donald Trump did, setting in motion, setting in play for religious freedom. Now, I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. The churches always did very well under persecution. If you go back to the book of Acts, in Acts chapter number 1 and Acts 2, when the church came under persecution, the church flourished. The church did fine.
Christianity is probably the one religion that tends to flourish even more the more that it's persecuted. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Reed, I can name you several countries that are closed, and I would just say the church is doing fine in these countries that are closed. Now, it makes it a lot easier for these people, and we would much rather our people be able to go to church freely and to be able to have a church that they attend that they call their own than having to go hide and have church. I would much rather people not go to jail, for preaching the gospel or be killed in some countries for preaching the gospel. I would much rather them have their religious liberty, but the church still is doing well. Because let me just say this, these people are true Christians in these countries. I mean, listen.
They have to be.
Absolutely. If you go to church today, you have a good chance of going to jail or being killed. Try going to church in North Korea on the street. Go through North Korea and start passing out gospel tracts, inviting people to church. Go to Israel and try that. And go to Iran and try that.
Or Pakistan.
Or go to Egypt. Or a lot of these countries, they will shut you down so quick and make your hair stand. They'll put you in prison. You'll get persecuted. Some people even get killed for the cause of Jesus Christ. So the church is going to do fine either way as far as the church growing. But it's a whole lot easier, whenever you have the freedom to worship God freely. But whenever Donald Trump is in office, that window is expanded, not just here, but in other countries, because the pressure comes on these countries to open up as far as having religious freedom. The same things happen under Reagan. The same things can happen under President Trump. And so that's one of many reasons why it is good versus evil, not just Republican versus Democrat. You see, whenever you vote, Christian, whenever I vote, I don't just vote Republican or Democrat based upon that platform. I vote according to biblical values. And so whenever I look at the Republican platform, and you can look at the Republican platform, it is loaded with biblical values. When I go look at the Democrat platform, read, it is anti-biblical value.
Kamala Harris came out last week in favor of legalizing sex work. Did you see that? Another one of those libertarian points that they're trying to incorporate into their campaign. I guess they think they're going to win some libertarians here. I don't know what they're thinking, but yeah, that's a part of their platform now.
Is there that many prostitutes out there that they think that they're going to get that many votes?
I don't know, man. I couldn't tell you what they're thinking here.
Is that business doing that well?
Not as far as I know. But yeah, that's a part of their campaign now, and I just why are they going to make that a hill to die on? I don't understand who they think they're going to win. So maybe they think they're courting young people, like more libertarian leading young people.
Maybe.
But the libertarian leading millennials that I know, and I know quite a substantial number of them, they don't really care about that issue. It's not a top ranking issue to them. And this was just a couple of weeks after Kamala went on that infamous, I guess it was like a sex focused podcast. It was kind of weird. Just really bizarre stuff coming out of the Kamala Harris campaign, culturally speaking. And I don't think it's anything that's going to gain them any traction.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, that, they would put that out. I like what Donald Trump is saying about, taxes, not being taxed for your tips. And he's mentioned several other things, which I think is great.
That's something that millennials and Gen Z care about a bit more, like the fact that, waiters, servers, their tips are taxed for utter ridiculous reasons. And a lot of people my age and younger can't afford to buy a house. We're not going to be able to afford to buy a house for a long time.
Yeah.
That's what we care about.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I'm with you. We already pay way too many taxes as it is. We are taxed on everything. And we've talked about that in depth before on the show. But we are taxed on everything. And eventually, they're going to be taxing us on the air that we breathe. And if they can figure out a way to do that, we have cows. You saw my cows when they pulled up on my property. We have to pay taxes on that. There's, just having cats. There's just so many different taxes that you have to pay. That whenever I hear Donald Trump up there saying, look, I'm going to do away with taxes on tips. I'm like, wow, that's good. Senior citizens are going to have to pay, taxes. That's great, on their land, on their property. You shouldn't have to. I pay $2,700 a month on my land tax, and I'm going to be paying that for the next 40 years. When do I ever reach where I finally don't have to pay taxes anymore on my own property?
You don't.
No. And so, but Donald Trump was able to do away with it for senior citizens. I don't think I ought to pay property tax at all. But if I can get somebody to get this passed where whenever you become a senior citizen, you don't have to pay it anymore, I'm okay with that.
But it says so much about the fact that our country has gotten to the point that if you wanted to own a piece of property, farm on that piece of property, live off the land, and go completely off the grid, you wouldn't be able to, because you'd have to find some way to make enough cash to pay your property taxes every year. Otherwise, the government's going to come around and take away your property. Does that sound like a free country to you?
No, you give it 3 years. 3 years, and they'll come and take your property. Well, after 3 years of not paying taxes and somebody else pays those taxes, they'll come in and say, okay, you got to pay, here's what your bill is. And they add a fees on it, and then there's a percent, that they add on top of that.
Like penalties and stuff?
Absolutely. And so, and if you don't pay it, then you got to move out, and somebody else comes in and takes over your property, that have been paying the taxes on it. Yeah, that shouldn't be, but it happens, and it happens every single day. Every day here in the United States of America that people get kicked out of their own place because of not paying taxes. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way.
Absolutely. And then Kamala Harris is running on an unrealized capital gains tax. That's an official part of her platform, by the way. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
A tax on unrealized capital gains. Basically, what that means is that let's say you have a house that goes up in value from $100,000 to $200,000 in the course of a year. and let's say the unrealized capital gains tax is 25%, let's say hypothetically speaking, you now owe the government $25,000 even though you didn't sell the house. So if you just own a house that goes up in value, as an example, and let's say you owe the federal government 25% of whatever that increased value is. If you didn't sell the house, what's your option for paying that balance to the government? You're going to have to sell that house if you weren't planning on selling it before. It's an utterly devastating idea, and it would be just atrocious for our economy. Man, I'm hoping that those independents and moderates in the middle can see that. I'm really hoping that they will vote on basis of the economy. One point I wanted to bring up about that, I think we should give the Trump campaign some credit, because over the last several weeks and months, you and I have both been screaming from the top of our lungs, Trump has got to focus on the economy and immigration. Economy and immigration, make it about policy. That's what I see the Trump campaign doing. I think that they're actually keeping us focused with great alacrity on those issues of policy, not personality, not stupid claims about who looks better, whatever else, just dumb things like that Trump has, believe it or not, been known for over the last several years. I think that the Trump campaign is keeping it focused on those top two policy areas. If they can continue to do that, we might get the result we need on election night.
And you know who I believe is really helping with that is Jamie Vance.
Vance, I think so. I've had that same thought.
Looks like you've been sleeping well,
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
and you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit mypillow.com.
Whenever Donald Trump announced that he was going to pick J.D. Vance, listen, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know much about the man. You know, I didn't know much about him. I had other people that I wanted him to pick to be his VP. You know, then he picked J.D. Vance, and I was like, man, I don't know a lot about it. You know, so then I began to research, begin to study, and then watched his debate against Tim Walz, and I was sold. You know, I was sold on J.D. Vance. You know, not just VP for Donald Trump, but then president after, you know, Donald.
That was a master class, wasn't it?
Maybe I can see J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard, you know, as far as a running in 2028. But my point is, yeah, I think J.D. Vance is helping with that. And you're right. Donald Trump is sticky. Now, he's still Donald Trump, and that's why we love him. And that's why I fell in love with him from you know, the first time. You know, is just, he hits hard, and that's what we need. But he's been sticking to what is important to the American people. You know, talking about taxes, talking about the border. And J.D. Vance has been extremely, extremely well in helping, I think, stick to the issues. J.D. Vance has, you know, something that Mike Pence just didn't have. You know, I was a Pence guy, you know, whenever Donald Trump had Pence as his VP. But J.D. Vance has more of a leadership, in my opinion, than Mike Pence. Mike Pence was more of I'll try to explain it like this. Mike Pence was more of a yes man to Donald Trump.
And Mike Pence was also extremely calm, extremely cool, extremely collected. Pence almost seemed to be put there for optical reasons, for counterbalancing all of Trump's tendencies that maybe came off a bit rough around the edges, right?
Yeah.
And J.D. Vance does compliment Trump more nicely. There's a bit of energy to it.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And Pence was not the type of guy is come follow me. Pence was more the guy of, Pence did a very good job at pointing people to Trump. I mean, he was very good at that, pointing people to Trump. I thought he did extremely well with that, Mike Pence. But he was not follow me kind of guy. J.D. Vance, his leadership ability, his leadership style is follow me as I follow Trump. And here's the difference. The difference is when Donald Trump is president, he's just going to run this one term. Mike Pence, I don't think had it in him to pick up the torch and to keep running. J.D. Vance has that ability. He has that type of leadership that he can pick up the torch because he is follow me as I follow Trump. Pence was follow Trump. And so there's a major difference in their leadership. Now neither one say that, but just listening to them and watching them how they are. Now, J.D. Vance does extremely well at pointing people to Trump. He does very good. He's a great VP. But he has more of that follow me style leadership than what Mike Pence had. And so I don't think Mike Pence could have won president of the United States of America. I don't think he could have been elected as president, but J.D. Vance can be. J.D. Vance, as long as he just continues doing what he's doing, does a good job as vice president, I think that he can.
I agree.
And they're sticking to the issues. And J.D. Vance, when you watch that debate against Tim Walz, they would try to get off. I mean, he had Tim Walz agreeing with it. I mean,
Tim Walz was the deer in the headlights, man. I felt a little bit bad for Tim Walz there at times.
I mean, he had Tim Walz call himself a knucklehead. I mean, we're talking about a VP candidate for the United States of America on national TV calling himself a knucklehead. I mean, that's crazy. But going back to, that's the type of person that J.D. Vance is. And so I'm extremely happy that Donald Trump has picked him. And you're right, 100%. They are sticking to the issues. And we've got less than 10 days, and we've got to stick to the issues. This is not just Republican versus Democrat. This is good versus evil. And when you look at all of these issues, look at protecting the family. Good versus evil. I mean, do you think Kamala Harris really cares about protecting your family? I mean, whenever you look at the family overall, I mean, do you think they really care? A party that will allow drag queens to come in and dress and drag queen and read books to your children promoting that type of ideology?
Perhaps even mandated. If Kamala Harris
absolutely.
becomes president.
Those people are not your friends. Those people want to brainwash your children. They want to pervert your children because that is 100% perverted. Whenever you have grown men dressed in drag and they're coming in and they're short skirts and shaking their booty in front of 3 and 4 and 5-year-old little boys and girls, that, my friend, is perverted. That is straight out of the very pit of hell. That is not a Democrat or Republican issue. That is a good versus evil issue. That is evil. Evil. Evil, evil, evil. And that drag queen, these drag queen shows having in front of these children is evil. Now listen, if you want to go and have your drag show with a bunch of adults, by all means, go for it. I mean, if you want to go dress in drag and put on a dress and lipstick and makeup and go with a bunch of other adults and do it, go for it. But leave our children alone. Don't be going to libraries and reading books for our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds and act like that stuff normal, because it's not. It's wicked and straight out of the very pit of hell. That's exactly what it is. It's wicked. It's perverted. It's perversion. And now they're trying to pervert our children. Kamala Harris is not going to be a fighter for the family. That's the kind of mess and garbage that she's promoting. She's promoting that garbage. She's promoting that mess. Donald Trump, we stand against it. You know, it's good versus evil. And so whenever you look at the family unit, they want to pervert your children. They want to allow your children to have sex changes without mom and dad even knowing about it. I mean, that doesn't happen in Mississippi. You know, that's not happening here. You know, but in places like California and
in Minnesota. Minnesota,
absolutely, they're pushing that garbage. And so, but it's unbelievable at some of the things that they're pushing. And then they'll act like that's normal. I saw a video the other day, and it was so truthful. It was some people, and they had these other people on like cat and dog leashes, and they were walking them. and these people like barking like dogs and meowing like cats and acting like a bunch of, and seriously acting like dogs and cats. And they identified as a dog and a cat. And those people want to act like that's normal. They want to act like me being married to a woman, for 18 years now, been married to a lady with 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls, and going to church every Sunday and bringing our children to school and involved in their life. They want to act like that's abnormal. And they want to act like acting like a bunch of dogs and cats normal. That's insane.
Yeah, they want to act like we're the weird ones because we adhere to what everybody considered moral all the way up until about 5 years ago.
But whenever you look at what they're doing and what they're pushing, that is perverted. 100% perverted. And they want to say that's normal. That's not normal. That's not normal. Whenever you're walking around, and you're on the streets and you're barking and meowing like cats, and that is 100% abnormal. And they want to act like we're abnormal. You're abnormal because, you have a girlfriend, or because you're married to a lady. But they're trying to destroy the family unit. They want to make preachers perform weddings for same-sex couples.
Absolutely. That will happen. Now, look at the legislation that Kamala Harris sponsored in 2016 and 2019, whenever she was in the U.S. Senate, requiring that religious organizations such as churches and Christian charities, so on and so forth, provide insurance to their employees that provided abortion and contraception and things like that. That's exactly what they want to do. They want to enforce their distorted version of reality, their distorted code of morals from their wicked alternate religion, this new religion of wokeism. They want to enforce the morals of that religion on all of us, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, everyone in between.
Reed, you can write this down and take it to the bank. I don't care what they mandate. If Kamala Harris wins, Kamala Harris, this is to you. If you win, you become president of the United States of America, I don't care what you mandate. They'll be serving ice cream cones in hell before I perform a wedding for 2 men. They'll be serving ice cream cones in hell before I perform a wedding for 2 women. It ain't happening. You put me in jail, lock me up, throw away the key. It ain't happening. We ain't doing it. And you're right. If Kamala Harris is elected, that's exactly what she'll be trying to mandate.
Maybe it's time for the Black Robe Regiment to make a comeback, just like in the Revolutionary days.
Absolutely. And whenever it comes to, they want to make bakers do wedding cakes for same-sex marriages. They want to make preachers perform them. They're going to want to make musicians perform for these same-sex marriages. They want to do all of that. Every bit of it. It ain't happening with me. We're not going down that route. But that's the type of thing, good versus evil. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about good versus evil. They are absolutely 100% trying to destroy the family unit. They know why. Why is that, Reed? I'm gonna tell you why. They know that if they can destroy the family unit, then they can control you. That's how they want people on welfare.
It's also destroying the family and replacing it with the state. I mean, it's called the nanny state for a reason. We have that for a reason because ultimately their plan is to remove you from any connection you, for example, have with your parents, your children, so on and so forth, so that your primary way of connecting with the outside world, your primary form of shelter, your primary way of being taken care of is through the government rather than through the family. It's about usurping the family unit and replacing it with the state, ultimately. And they're willing to wait several generations in order to fully accomplish that, but it is well underway.
Well, they started with these TV shows. They started with that, putting it into the family home.
I think they began with the welfare state. Quite literally the welfare state that began under Wilson and then FDR. And it grew under FDR. I think that's really when it began. And it magnified due to what you're talking about with the entertainment industry.
So let's just take it a step further. Absolutely. They've also done it with putting these men in prison for charges such as marijuana. They've taken the black man out of the home, out of the family, and they put him in jail. A lot of them in jail, for marijuana. Listen to me very carefully. I don't do drugs. I don't do marijuana. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. That is not a feather in my hat. I just don't do those things. But if you're going to put people in jail for smoking marijuana, then put people in jail for drinking beer, drinking alcohol. And so I don't think people ought to go to prison, for marijuana. Just like You know, if you're going to put people in jail for marijuana, then put people in jail for alcohol. They both have the same effect. Both destroy families. Both of them cause wrecks. You know, drunk driving or driving under the influence. Both of them are not good. For you as far as when you look at drunk driving. I mean, 40,000 people a year are killed from drunk driving. My family was almost killed from a drunk driver. That came across the interstate doing 100 miles an hour and hit them head on, coming home from church. That was a drunk driver that did that. He was drunk. He's in prison to this day. Right now he's in jail, for hitting my family. And the lady that was with him died. And so if you're going to put people in prison, put them in prison for alcohol. Most people that smoke marijuana, they don't come home and beat their wife. They might go get them a couple of cheeseburgers. I hear it makes you hungry. And so I'm not really sure about that. But what I'm saying is the government has declared war on the family. And whenever you have the administration like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they are coming after the family wholeheartedly. Welfare system, they come through with their TV shows, undermining the authority, the rule of the man in the home. They come attack that away. They've taken the black man out of the home, as far as the war on drugs in that sense. I mean, there are so many different things, that they're doing. Reed, I want to mention one more thing because I know we're about running out of time. But that is the need for truth. The need for truth. Whenever you look at the government, I know a lot of good people that are in government, right? I know a lot of good people that are elected officials that are good Christian men, good Christian women. Now, we can name several of them here on the show. But there's also a lot of corruption when you look at D.C. When you look at the FBI and how they've raided Trump and how they've gone after Trump, and you look at New York and all of the things that have come down against Trump, you look at the corruption within the FBI, the corruption within our own federal government, all of these billions of dollars, that are missing, from the Pentagon. And you have, millions of dollars being sent overseas, studying whatever that they're studying. And you have billions of dollars being sent, to Ukraine and billions of dollars being sent to Israel. And then the FEMA director gets up and says, we don't have money, for the people in North Carolina with the hurricane. And you have all this stuff going on. There is just so much corruption. And one reason why they fight against Donald Trump so hard is because Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, the man is going to shoot straight with you. He's going to tell you how it is. That's why they are attacking the man. That's why they are doing all that they can to even try to have him assassinated. I mean, you've had several different assassination attempts against Donald Trump because they don't want the truth out. These people don't want you and I to know just how wicked and how vile they are. Just go look at the gentleman that was just arrested. How do you say his name? Diddy or something like that? I mean, all of the perversion that's wrapped up with him, with a lot of these elected officials. Then go look at the Epstein list that they don't want out. All of the perversion, from the Epstein list, from the Epstein Island, and just so much corruption and so much perversion that is going on in our federal government. It is a shame. And somebody like Donald Trump, he's going to put the truth out there. He's going to tell you like it is, and he's not going to hold back. And they want to stop that. They want to stop the truth from getting out. That is why they use social media to suppress conservatives. That's why the government they sent a letter to Elon Musk wanting him to suppress, Donald Trump, and they want to try to blame it on Russian collusion. The Russians helped Donald Trump. At the end of the day, it was our government that was trying to get social media to suppress, like they'll suppress this show. They don't want social media influencers to be promoted or to be seen. Why? Because they want to cover up the truth. They want to cover up the truth. And so it's very important when you look at this election in November. It's good versus evil. Do you want the truth or do you not want the truth?
But did you see that Kamala Harris is actually bringing several dozen staffers from the British Labour Party to come to the United States and door knock, canvass, and swing states here? Did you see that's happening?
I did not.
That sounds incredibly illegal, does it not? Can you imagine how outraged the Founding Fathers would be to see presidential candidates importing bread coats, we might even joke around and say, into this country to go campaign in swing states for Democratic candidates? But that's happening. So some Russians bought some ads in the 2016 election, and we haven't stopped hearing about Russiagate ever since.
Yeah.
But Brits can come over here and door knock in our elections, in our republic, for candidates we may or may not agree with, and it's fine. The media doesn't even care.
Of course they're not going to say anything. And because they're going to promote Kamala Harris. And they're going to do all that they can to promote her. And Proverbs 12, the Bible says, lying lips are abomination to the Lord. And Proverbs 23, it says, buy the truth and sell it not. And in John 8, he says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's what the truth will do. Whenever the truth is out, whenever the truth gets put out. But they're trying to cover up the truth. They want to hide the truth, and they want to just lie. They want to just lie. They want to do more than cover the truth. They want to lie. I like what George Washington said. And Reed, this comes back to, I think, to you and Jim, and what you and Jim are doing, as the Midnight Ride, and the work that y'all are doing to get truth out and to get the message of what we believe as conservatives out. George Washington said this. He said, truth will ultimately prevail. He said, truth will ultimately prevail. He said, where there is pains, to bring it to light. Now just think on that for a moment. Truth will ultimately prevail where there is pains, to bring it to light. You and Jim have worked extremely hard to get the truth out. I don't know how many hours y'all have put into the Midnight Ride. How many miles you put on your car for the Midnight Ride. How much money, your personal money that you and Jim has dumped into the Midnight Ride to get out truth. George Washington said it will ultimately prevail, but it's going to cost you, is what he was saying. It's going to pain you. It's going to cost you friendships. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time. Some may even cost them their life. Think about our founding fathers as they wrote and they signed that Declaration of Independence, declaring their independence from England. They were hunted. They were hung, killed, many of them tortured. Why? For truth. For truth. It cost them. It's going to cost you to get truth out. It's going to cost your friends. Some people's going to call you a radical. Some people's going to call you crazy. Some people's going to say you lost your mind. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you some, and it costs you family. It's going to cost you to get truth out. George Washington said he would. George Washington, very wise man. Would you agree that for George Washington, it cost him?
Absolutely.
It cost him.
Yep.
Would you
And it
agree?
cost many of our founding fathers a whole heck of a lot more. Costing their fortunes, costing their honor, cost them their lives in many cases.
Absolutely. It pained them, but it was well worth it. When you look at this nation was built upon truth. This nation was built upon freedom, life, the pursuit of happiness. That's why whenever people say, give me your John Hancock wrote his name large because he wanted his name to be seen first. It cost every one of those men to get the truth out. John Adams said this. He said, facts are a stubborn thing. Facts are a stubborn thing. You can lie all you want, Kamala Harris. You can lie all you want, Tim Walz, but facts are there. People are griping about a debate. They want another debate. We've had plenty of debate. We've had 3.5 years to watch this country as it's been on a fast track to hell because of the policy of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. One more quote from George Washington. Let us raise a standard to which the wise and honest can repair. Let us raise the standard. You and I, as Christians, we need to raise the standard. When you look at this election, Reed, we didn't get to everything. We've only talked about 4 or 5 things. There's so many other things that we could talk and discuss about. This election is more than just Republican versus Democrat. It's about good versus evil. Good versus evil. Reed, to show we got to end. We're right at the end, but is there any last words?
Oh, Dan, that was very well put. Don't give up yet. Don't fall asleep yet. We are less than 2 weeks out from this thing, and if you haven't voted, get out there and vote. Just get out there and vote. We need you. We need your vote more than ever before. But thank you, Dan, for another fantastic show.
Look, I just got a text before the show from a friend of mine named Ethan Jackson. He's in Georgia, and him and his wife just voted. He said 2 more votes for Trump in Georgia. Georgia's a swing state. You know, we're working very hard in Georgia. We're working hard in North Carolina. We're working hard in Arizona. We're working hard in all 7 of the swing states, trying to get people to the polls, trying to get people to go vote. We want you to do the same thing. We all know people in all of these states. Let's keep pushing. As Reed said, let's not fall asleep. Let's work. Let's give it everything we've got. Because this election, it's more than just Republican versus Democrat. This election is good versus evil. If you've enjoyed this show today, whether you're watching it on Substack, whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're watching it on Facebook, Whether you're watching it on X, if you're watching it on X, re-exit. If you're watching it on Facebook, share. If you're watching on Substack, share. Watching on YouTube, copy and paste the link. Put it out there. If you're watching on Rumble, wherever you're watching this show, help us share it. These social media platforms, they do not like shows like God and Country because they want to suppress this type of message. We count on you to help us to get it out. Let's vote and let's share God and Country. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. God bless you and God bless the great United States of America.
Hey guys, it's Reed here. I don't say this about a lot of people, but I have to say Mike Lindell is a real patriot, and we could not be more thankful to him and MyPillow for sponsoring today's episode of God and Country. Remember, go to MyPillow.com and save huge on a great night of sleep by entering the promo code Midnight Ride. Thanks.